I think also calling on our elected officials to refrain from legitimizing those voices of extremists and from refraining themselves from parroting that kind of speech is very important. And the same goes, frankly, for cable news and radio stations. And even though I've been shocked to the extent that people get away with saying things unchecked because they're making money. But we're starting to see some folks who've been emboldened by the freedom they've had and have crossed the line finally being called on. And I think we have a real opportunity right now with the tragic events of the last couple of weeks to finally shake ourselves up and say, we need to say something.
Yes.
Just a question for all of you. How do you respond to people that have been saying in the media that the murder of the Holocaust martyr was an isolated incident because the man did have, it was the Weekly Standard's address and a plane to go there and possibly assassinate Fred Barnes or Bill Kristol, and he did hate Bill O'Reilly, and he did have a lot of these anti-neocon agendas, and he had plans to assassinate some of those people. So is it fair to say to those people that this may have been an isolated incident because that's not necessarily the right way to be with all of those people as well?
I'll just have a quick comment and I'll throw it open. I don't think it's been established anywhere near fact that he had any plans. He had some addresses. Also, a lot of people on the far right don't like neocons. Pat Buchanan wrote a whole book about how he basically hates neocons. So it's still within the realm, I think, of the right-wing movement. But go ahead.
I was just going to add that neocons, for the most part, in white supremacist circles, are identified as Jews. And so it's actually an expression of anti-Semitism when he has materials like that about neocons. I mean, that's just the way they say him. It comes from his right-wing, crazy, racist, and anti-Semitic views.
And I think that he is an example of what we have been talking about. He's 88 years old. He obviously has listened to a lot of the right-wing stuff on TV, has produced his own blog, and his speech and his hate turned into violence. So it is not an isolated incident. It is part and parcel of the other hate crimes that we've all been talking about.
Are there any plans in terms of, for bottom line, are there any plans to appeal to the advertisers on some of these programs? I understand, for example, that UPS dropped their sponsorship of Bill O'Reilly, and I'm wondering if there are other plans. I personally was disappointed that nothing more has happened with the New York Post after publishing that cartoon.
Questions about possible advertising boycott as a way to inflict a little financial pain on the media outlets. Anyone have thoughts on that?
Well, we at the National Council of Raza have been talking to lots of folks in the corporate sector about paying close attention to what their dollars are buying. And I think right now that there is movement in that direction. There have been some companies, particularly who have pulled advertising from talk radio shows of this nature. And I think that it is fair to say that you'll see greater movement in that regard. I think some of the folks try to say that, when they buy an advertising package, it gets allocated in different ways and they don't have a say specifically in which show it goes to. But we have serious conversation going on in that area, and we will be prepared to make some public disclosures in that regard.
Quick question about fact-based reporting and who's in the reality-based community and who's not, and if we pay a price for being in it when the other side isn't. Anyone have thoughts on that and how to sort of fight back?
Well, I work on immigration, so what can I say? I think it's a fact-free zone when it comes to dealing with some of these anti-immigrant folks. I agree. I think framing is very important, and I think a lot of the misinformation around many of these issues, particularly around immigration, the misinformation has been cloaked with values, right? It's about defending America, et cetera, et cetera. Here are some interesting things. And when I talk about balance, I think it's as much about fact as much as it is about having other voices, right? So when you have a constant stream day after day after day of the same messages being hammered, but you don't have any different point of view or any dissenting point of view to talk about it in different terms, whether it's fact or not, there's a lack of balance there. So it is as much as about facts as it is about balance. Here's the thing that still continues to astound me and gives me hope, which is that, as I mentioned earlier, even when you consider what has been a barrage of mistruths and code words of hate and other things to describe immigrants and to polarize the immigration debate, look at the polls. The majority of the American population is not there. So what is so amazing about what's happening is that, as you very well said, if you allow extremist debate, then the fringe elements come to the forefront. And so what we are seeing when you look at this in the media is almost like those are the dominant forces. And in reality, they are not. But they need to be put in check, because unchecked, then you give license for actions that go from expressing an opinion to outright intimidation to outright violence. So I think that where the public is on some of this gives me hope. I think that the wake-up call is for us to, more than just be in the right space, also act to protect that space, because I think the public space for dialogue starts to close when the defining elements of the discourse are the extremes.